Hey guys, I'm Richard Wygand, a Dad on a Mission with your core podcast. So I was going to talk about the rowing marathon, which is gonna happen this Wednesday, but yesterday I came across with this article from the Washington Post about they're trying to take the long-lasting warnings about cholesterol and they're trying to redraw that, which is an awesome thing. And I just decided to share my experience because I think it's kind of unique. Maybe not unique, but it's kind of like different in a way on my experience of cholesterol. Uh, so I just decided to focus on that a little bit, and I'm gonna put the article in the description of this podcast, and so you can check it out as well. But cholesterol, it's been, like it have bad reputation just like fat for a long time, and they're finally trying to change that, which is an amazing thing, especially coming from the U.S. government changing the guidelines, and there are many people looking at differently, and I just think it's an amazing thing because probably just like you, I fell into like, oh, fat is bad, saturated fat is bad, it's gonna cause your arteries to block and this and that. And for a long time I fell into that, and like when I started to actually get healthy in 2003, I remember that I started to train, and everybody was like, you gotta put in some carbs, and then they were like, you know carbs is the way that a lot of people view carbs as pasta and pizza and stuff like that, and bread, and but those are not, like, for me, they're not real food. And they were always like, I gotta eat some carbs, because I was eating just pretty much veggies and just veggies and meat, and like low fat like everybody else. And then kind of like I fall into it, and I start having a lot of problems. So in order to fix those problems, I tried to go vegetarian, which it helped for a little bit. Then after that I actually went to do I went vegan. And then when I went vegan, I wasn't like I started to have, after a while I was starting to have some troubles. Then I tried, like, okay, let's go to the next phase now, which is raw vegan. And then there was like very, very low fat, 80%, only 80%, 80% carbs and only 10% fat. So what happened was I started to have hormonal issues, like, and it's crazy because I remember one day I was having like hot flashes, and I thought it was hot flashes, and I remember asking my mom, like, okay, what's the symptoms of hot flashes? And she explained it to me of like, okay, I'm having that, so that's not a good thing. And then so I started having thyroid issues, and my cholesterol was actually like below 150. Luckily, my testosterone didn't go down, but my DHEA was the first one to start going down, and my then I had thyroid issues and hot flashes and stuff like that, and then that's when I actually went from vegan to keto. But the first thing is I like to say, and I like to say this not because of anything, it's just because a lot of vegans gonna tell me like, hey, you didn't do it right, you didn't do it properly, and anything like that. But I actually was so into it, and like, food is, nutrition is one of my passions. Nutrition performance is like what I usually focus on, like you know is either endurance, building muscle, like anything related with exercise. It's my passion, and you got to put nutrition in. But anyways, so I was so into it that I went to do I got actually certified on plant-based diet from Cornell, with the same guy who actually wrote the China study. And so that's pretty amazing. Like, I knew what I was doing it, like it was pretty, like, I followed the plans that they suggested and all that stuff. So I was really really doing it good, and it worked for a little bit, but until I started having like hormonal issues, and my cholesterol was like so low, but so low that my body actually stopped producing hormones like the way it's supposed to be. And then that's when I was like, something gotta change. uh, I gotta do some stuff, and then I went keto pretty much. And actually, and it's worth to say that what actually made me do the full change was when I realized that my A1C levels, which is your average of your sugars, it was 5.6, which is 5.7 is pre-diabetic. So I was like, okay, I'm here vegan, and I'm an athlete, and I'm almost pre-diabetic. Something it's going on here. So that's when I started to research and actually talk to Peter, which is the guy from Vispa that I talked about it last week on our podcast. And in fact, I'm actually interviewing him Friday, so you guys should stay tuned for this interview. That's gonna be pretty cool. We're gonna be talking about performance and a bunch of stuff. But and then he told me, he's like, hey, you gotta switch it. You gotta stop burning fat, and you need to get some good nutrition in it. And that's when I started to study about keto, that I started to implement that. And actually now I'm actually a paleo diet certified, and health coach and all that stuff, because I just love those things. And like, I think it's very important to talk about it. So my cholesterol got so low that I started to have all these problems. And then the minute I guarantee I'm not lying or anything like that, when I first like ate my first eggs, and actually my first steak, which was a lamb, I automatically started feeling better. I started having more energy. And then I was cold all the time, and I was always lack of energy and things like that. And things are starting to shift right there. But it was like, what I like about this article, and it's showing some change in the way we eat. And I think that it's definitely important to have that, because like, fat and cholesterol used to have a bad reputation for a long time. And just like like I fell into like, well, we need to eat low fat. Fat is what makes us fat. And like, that led me to big trouble in my life. So I just was so impressed with that. And then like, I tell a lot of the people now, like, cholesterol, having a high cholesterol is not a bad thing, as long as your triglycerides are low. And eating fat, it's actually gonna help you lose weight. And it sounds kind of like crazy, but in order to burn fat, you need to eat fat. Like, and the funny thing is, I remember when I said that I was not vegan anymore. Like, some people that are the vegan community, they follow me, they just crashed it down me. Like, they just came up like a lot of time, a lot of judgment, and a lot of it was just like, it was bizarre. Like, I wasn't expecting that. But listen, I recovered my health, and I really love to say that I recovered my health, like, eating high cholesterol foods. Like, everything that people say that, oh, it's gonna clog your arteries, that's what I was eating. And I play a lot. Is like, okay, like, if you want to get healthy, eat on the old way of that people think that you should eat. So you should eat everything that clog your arteries. Just like, this is what you're supposed to be eating. Like, of course, I always suggest, don't eat anything processed. I just take with real food, and always try to eat the whole animals. But the crazy thing, a lot of people think, like, I had to go with a change of mindset. Like, for a while I was like, like, fat is bad. And like, it's almost like brainwashed. I heard this for my entire life. Like, you shouldn't be eating as much, and as much fat, and this and that. So fat, it's actually your friend. Cholesterol is actually your friend. It's cholesterol, as far as I know, it helps you, protects your body. And but the most important thing is, there is a change coming on this, and I think it's amazing. And like I said, my experience was, I was really into the low fat, high carb diet, and like after a while, I just couldn't perform anymore. And the funny thing is, I tried to actually, when I was raw vegan, I tried to finish 2 Ironmans, and I couldn't do. I crashed in both of them, and because I was just having to eat so much, I just couldn't go any further, and I was just literally crashing. But like it's and the funny thing is, when you start eating more fat, low carb, like, you don't get as hungry as often. You don't need to refuel as often, and you eat a lot less. And that's one thing I always tell people, like, people that say like, well, I don't want to eat animals and things like that, and I was like that as well. But the truth is, you don't need to eat a whole lot of animal protein, and like, you don't need to eat a whole lot of animal products. When you're in the fat burning stage, sometimes one meal a day, it's more than enough. Normally I usually have 1 to 1.5 meal a day. That's pretty much it. And and to be fair, once my son was born, I actually tried to go vegan again. I said, like, okay, I'm not training to perform now. I'm just I'm just being like a normal guy that wants to be healthy, and then not trying to win anything or do good in any race. So I was like, okay, maybe now vegan can work for me. And then I tried, and I gained 50 pounds. I feel like, okay, I'm gonna eat low fat, high carb, and like, my body started getting out of whack again. And the best, the what I did, it was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to, I know where my body performs best, which is eating a higher fat intake, lower carb intake, and then just go from there. So that's like, the most important thing that I want to say is, like, don't be afraid of fat, don't be afraid of animal products. They are very good for you. There's a lot of study out there coming out, showing how good it is, and how much fat can you lose just by eating more fat, and all that stuff. So I think it's very important to understand that fat, it's not your enemy. Fat is definitely not your enemy. And my son, actually, I remember that that was June. It was about June that my son was just on a Nourish. Like, when he was just turning to, Nourish is just a vegan formula that technically gives everything, and he was eating overnight, because usually kids with neuromuscular disease, they have a tendency to drop their blood sugar quite a bit overnight. So that's why they needed to eat at night. But like, when I actually came back eating the way that I was eating before, I just realized, like, what? The best way to build muscle is to be a fat burner. Like, the more efficient fat burner you are, the better the environment for performance and build muscle and things like that will be for you. So we decided to change his diet against a few doctors that said, like, no, that's not a good thing, and he needs to overnight and this and that. But I said, like, listen, overnight he needs to recover. He doesn't need to be eating and recovering. So we changed his diet, and in 2 months, that it was incredible. I have some pictures on my social media that you can check it out, the difference between one diet to the other. He's actually building muscle, which is very, very very hard for him. So he's getting strength, and guess what? He's not eating overnight. He have way more energy. Cognitively, his brain is just like, it's way faster, and he's growing healthy now. And even though with his challenge, he's still growing quite a bit. So it's a shift in conscience, and it's a shift the way that you need to you think, because like everybody's so afraid, like, and there's so much fear when it comes to fat and cholesterol. And I think this article was a pretty amazing thing. So my experience with being vegan, it was good because it opened up for me to eat more vegetables, because like before I wasn't eating as many vegetables and things like that. Before I was just eating just the basic, like pasta and things like that. So it opened up my my knowledge for nutrition, of course, but I must say it's for me, vegan no more, because it's just like I saw with my own eyes what the food did to me, and eating more fat did to me, and what it happens to me when I was eating a whole lot of carbs. I wasn't performing well. My cholesterol got really low, and then now I remember I had a discussion. I think it was the beginning of 2016. Like I was eating a high fat, and then I did a blood test for I don't remember what it was. I just did a blood exam, and then the guy said like, "Oh, your cholesterol is high. I'm gonna put you on medication." I was like, "Hell no, you're not gonna put me on medication." I reading like a lot of like studies and a lot of stuff from doctors that that are explaining, and I said like, you know what? I definitely not gonna. You're not gonna put in medicine for cholesterol. My cholesterol is fine. My triglycerides are fine. Everything is right on, spot on. The only thing it's showing is technically that your cholesterol is a little higher on the old way of thinking, not on the new way of thinking. So I just told the guy, I was like, I'm not gonna take it. He's like, okay, that's fine. Like it's at your own risk. But that's the most important thing, and that's how I recover my hormones. And like since I changed that, I had no more hot flashes. I was able to lower my thyroid medicine a little bit. I was in 150 milligrams of Synthroid. Now I'm in 100 only. So hopefully my body keeps going this way. When I came back from training again after my son was born, not training professionally, but I started to train a lot more, and now doing CrossFit, like I'd lost 50 pounds again. And like I usually like to say, like I went to that route, like I was sold on fat, it's what makes us fat. I was sold that we needed carbs for energy in this and that, until I realized like when I saw with my own what happened with my body, and what happened with my health, it started deteriorating. So I just started to eat a lot more fat. I wouldn't say that I can't say that I'm more in the keto, but I still eat more sweet potatoes here and there. I keep it on the lower side, especially because if I eat too much, my insulin kind of go crazy. But like if you are having any type of issues with blood sugars or crashing throughout the day, you should really rethink your diet, because that's gonna pay the price later on. You might not see anything now, and you might see like, oh, I'm just like always hungry, and then I always need to be snacking, but everything else is good. You should rethink, because like sometimes that's gonna show up later on. And for me, like being vegan and then raw vegan afterwards, it showed up quicker because I was just training for an Ironman. I was just training like a maniac. So like I was putting 30 to 40 hours a week of training, and that just depleted my body so quick, so much quicker than a lot of other people. So sometimes like they were like, oh, I can get away with this and that, but you can for a while. It might last longer depending on what kind of lifestyle you have. If you have a really stressful and active lifestyle like a professional athlete, you might feel the difference way before that. So I just love reading that article. I just love reading that change. And like I said, I I was sold on that, and I was, like a lot of the doctors that actually saw my cholesterol when it was 150, they said like, "Oh, this is awesome! Like you're super healthy." Even like some alternative medicine places, they were like, "No, this is perfect. Like you doing really really good." But I started to pay the price later on. Like I started to look at the numbers, and like when I noticed, and it's when I noticed that my DHEA was lower, and then my thyroid was kind of like going higher and high. The levels were going like further from the healthy ones. I was like, okay, this is something going on. And the impressive part is that the same thing happened with my wife. Same thing, exactly thing happened with her. She started but she stopped before, and she wasn't training for an Ironman, so she was able to recover a lot faster from that. And that she was able to reverse her hormones way faster than I did. But because I was training, I was depleting my body so much during the Ironman training that caused for me to deplete it a little faster. But she started to have like same issues with cortisol, DHEA. DHEA actually was the first one to go down, and then she started having problems with her cortisol and all that stuff. And it's worth to say that there is, when it comes to hormones, there are a lot of things that also have to do with stress, but the nutrition stress, it's huge. Like to have the blood sugars going up and down like crazy, that is creating stress to your body. So whenever we talk about stress and hormones, you got to remember that nutritional stress can be up to 40% of your total stress do the day, for example. So if you're eating bad and then you change your diet, you can reduce 40% of your total stress in your body. So that's a remarkable number. And if you look at it, like if you're really stressed out and having other issues on your life, like you're dealing with a bunch of other stuff, just like I deal with, like business, family, my kids' health, and this and that. What you eat, it can reduce 40% of that total stress. So imagine like if you're having a lot of like health issues related to stress, and you can reduce that 40% by just eating a little bit different, it makes a huge impact in somebody's life. So like I think it's time for now to start looking at cholesterol different. You start looking at fat differently, and just start eating more fat. But you got to remember, like when you eat more fat, you got to reduce the sugar, because if you mix both of them, it's gonna be a nightmare. That's gonna be even worse than just having sugar, or just having or not having fat or whatever. Just if you mix a high fat intake with a high sugar intake, that's gonna be disaster for your body. And that's what a lot of the issues happen in the past. But if you're still gonna eat carbs, and you're still gonna eat and whenever I say, and it's very funny, because whenever I tell people that I use fat as fuel, people automatically think that I did Ironmans eating bacon. Like I actually tried that in one transition. I had bacon on it, which was awesome, but that's that's a topic for another podcast. But what I'm trying to say is, when you're still gonna eat carbs, you're still gonna have some sort of carbs. But the difference is that when you eat that carb, it's just gonna you're gonna eat a lot less. You're gonna really eat a lot less. You're gonna eat from high quality. Of course, when you're racing, you're gonna use other type of carbs like gel and things like that. But you're just gonna reduce like at least one 3/4 of what you normally use, and the carbs it just helps you kicking in the fat burning. But that's the most important thing. And one thing that I realized too is like when I was vegan, I was actually eating a whole lot, like, and I had to eat like non-stop. And when I turned into a keto, I actually did an experiment that I woke up and because when I saw them I was almost pre-diabetic, I started to test my blood test and my blood sugars pretty much every morning. So I remember that when the keto started kicking in after like 6 weeks, I did a test. Like I woke up, I tested my blood sugars and it was on the 72s. Actually, sorry, on the 70s. And then I went swimming. I swam like 5,000 that day, empty stomach. I came back home and it was a pretty hard swim. I came back home and I tested again and my blood sugar was 78. So I started to research. It's like your body produces sugar for you. You know, like you don't have to do crap. You don't have to eat sugar because your body produces for you. And that was like, for me, that was like, okay, that's it. You know, like after that, I did my last 5 Ironmans, empty stomach. I didn't crash. I didn't bunk at all. I'm not saying that you're not going to slow down. You might slow down because of fatigue, but you just have like almost, it's endless energy. And your body produces sugar for you. You know, like that's the beauty of it. So if your body thinks that he needs sugar, he's gonna produce for you. So you don't need to put it in. You don't need to spike your insulin. You don't need to do anything of that. And like I said, I was really pleased to see that article coming out. Don't be afraid of fat. Don't be afraid of cholesterol. Like I said, I'm a living proof of that. I was all into like, we need to be vegan. We need to eat more carbs, less fat, this and that, until I pay the price. And me paying the price, it might be a way to help you not pay the price. So like I said, it's been an amazing journey, and I gonna reinforce here for all the vegans that if you ever listen to this podcast, you know, like I was certified on plant-based diet. I follow everything that I forgot his name, but the guy from the China study suggested, Dr. Colin Campbell. I did all that stuff. I follow to the T. You know, like being an athlete, I am really good on being coachable and following the plan, and I follow the plan and I paid the price. My cholesterol went way too low, and when way too low, your hormones start, like your body doesn't have ways to produce hormones. But the beauty of being keto or being fat adapted, being burning fat as fuel, you don't need to eat as much. You don't need to eat a whole lot of animal protein. You don't need to eat a whole lot of fat, because your body's just like, you're not depleting your body every time you do something. Like if you go work out and you deplete your body when you're eating a high carb, then you're gonna be seeking for food, and it's just gonna deplete everything. But when you're burning fat, you go and work out, you don't deplete it, and you keep going, you know. And it's just like, it's amazing. You know, sometimes like my best workout sometimes is like when I'm fasting for 16-18 hours. So just keep that in mind. Check it out, the article. It's pretty amazing article. Don't be afraid of fat, you know, and start eating real whole foods with more fat. And one thing I always tell, and I learned that with Peter from Vespa, eat the whole animal. And just so you know, today I'm having liver for lunch, and I learned it with him. Eat the whole animal. There's plenty of nutrition in there. There is, like I said, don't be afraid of cholesterol. Don't be afraid of fat. Eat more fat. Feed your brain. Feed your body. Nourish it, and just go for it. So I think that's a very cool experiment that I ended up doing, and I definitely didn't want to pay the price with my health, but I recovered my health just by eating a little bit more animal proteins, a little bit more fat into my diet, maybe a lot more fat, especially when I was training for an Ironman. I was eating a lot more calories, but I still were eating like a lot more fat. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of fat. And for the vegans out there, like if you guys want to, I understand people wanted to stay vegan and all that, and might be working for you, but just in case it's not working for you, or just think about it. Like I said, especially now with the guidelines of nutrition starting to change, that's a very important thing. It's very important to realize that that we need a little bit of those fats, those saturated fats. And I play with my guys. Just eat whatever clogs your arteries. All right. This is Richard Wygand, A Dad on a Mission, with your Core podcast. Thank you.